Hey everyone. In this video, I want to discuss the topic of how we tend to get attached to other people and how I've thought about this and I don't really believe we often literally get attached to people. I think it's a bit deeper than that. I think far more often than not, we get attached to concepts and people are merely the medium through which we believe we'll obtain that concept. So a great example of this would be, let's say you have the desire of feeling wanted and loved, so you start dating someone new and you immediately get attached to them because they're the medium through which you have the potential to feel wanted and loved. But that person isn't actually special or anything, right? Like anyone really could fulfill that role of making you feel wanted and loved. So this is what I mean here. You're not actually attached to that person, even though you may think you are. You're attached to the concept, and that person is the medium through which you believe you'll obtain the concept of being wanted and loved. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. But that's a really interesting thing that I've thought about quite a bit, because I used to think that I would get really attached to specific women, and the more I thought about it, I realized it wasn't so much about them. And this actually made it easier for me to start working on dropping my attachments, because once I realized it wasn't the women that I was attached to and it was the concepts, now I knew that I needed to work on my attachment to those concepts. That's how I could solve getting attached to specific women. Because at some point I realized many of those concepts that I desire, any woman could really fulfill. Okay, maybe not any woman, but you get what I mean. There are a lot of women out there who could fulfill that role of helping me meet those specific concepts. Like, one of the things that I really want in my life is to start a family eventually. So I have an attachment to that, and that's one that I've tried to work on to not really be so attached to it, but it really is a strong desire for me. So at this point, it's a desire that I'm just going to let continue to exist, because I'd rather not give it up. But that is something that almost any woman could fulfill that role, right? So long as her lady parts are functioning properly, she could fulfill that role. I could have children with her. So sometimes there's a potential for me to get attached to a specific woman, but she's really just a medium for me to obtain that goal of starting a family. Because whether or not she's in the picture, there are plenty of other women out there who could fulfill that same goal, that desire. So this may be a concept that could help you work on your attachments as well, because you may realize you're not actually attached to specific people. You may not be attached to your ex or the current people you're dating, or maybe even your current romantic partner, your current friends, family members, whatever it may be. Maybe you're more attached to concepts that those people help you obtain, feeling wanted and desired, that desire to start a family with someone, whatever it may be. Those attachments, those are what are actually messing you up, and not the people in question. So yeah, I mean, hopefully this was helpful. This is something that really has made it easier for me to not be so attached to women anymore, because I've kind of just realized, like, there's a lot of magic in relationships that if you've worked on yourself enough, you can create that magic. And I've come to realize I can probably create that magic with almost any woman that I like enough. Now, of course, I do need to like her enough, so I couldn't create it with just any woman, because if that attraction isn't there, if I don't like both her body and her mind, then there's not much for me to work with, and the magic isn't just going to come pouring out of me. But provided those two criteria are met, if I like her mind and she has a body that I'm attracted to, that magic just flows out of me. So once I realized that, it made it easier for me to deal with rejection and to deal with things not going very far with women, or that's not the right way of putting it, but things not lasting long is what I should say, because I have met a decent amount of women that I thought were higher quality, and it unfortunately didn't last long with many of them. So that used to trip me up, because I've dated around quite a lot, and I know that women who work on themselves are rare. So every time I would meet a woman who I thought met that criteria, I would get a bit attached to her, because she was, in my opinion, a means of obtaining that end, that goal, that concept of starting a family. So when she would walk out of my life, I would be devastated because I was attached to her, thinking, or I was attached to that concept and really thinking that I was attached to her, but it wasn't so much her, because none of those women in hindsight have, changed my life, and with them walking out of it didn't really mess things up at all, so much as me having to go through minor healing periods after them, but they weren't even that difficult to deal with. So yeah, this is an interesting thing for you to think about and maybe realize in your own life that you may be attached to actual concepts and you're trying to use people to get those concepts. So your attachments aren't actually to the people themselves, they're to those concepts. And the more you realize that, it can help you not get so attached to people and become needy and clingy and whatnot. Instead, you can work on your attachment to those concepts and maybe figure out if you can actually get through life without obtaining them. And if you can hit that point, you'll be far freer than most people. Now, I'm not advocating for not wanting those concepts, those goals at all. I'm just saying if you can simultaneously want them but be okay with not having them, that is a powerful place to be, because most people get completely attached to them to the point they couldn't imagine life without getting those things, and that just tends to trip people up in the long run. So that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about in this video. I really hope you enjoyed this one. I hope you're able to follow this concept. I hope I explained it well enough, and I'm really curious to see what you guys have to think about this. So definitely leave your comments down below. Let me know if you have experience with this, if you believe this is right, that you actually tended to get more attached to concepts that you desired and not so much people, because the people are just a way for you to get that concept or goal. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Arrivederci!